Hello everybody, welcome back to Pop Goes the 60s. I'm Matt Williamson, and this is a part 2 to my top 10 most covered Beatles songs. Now that video just came out recently, and one thing I like about doing this channel is people make suggestions and leave such good comments. It starts another video, like this one here. So we're going to look at the solo Beatles and the cover songs from that. And it's quite interesting because it's almost a polar opposite of what we saw in the first video. In the first video, if you haven't seen it, check it out. I'll leave a link at the end. But Paul McCartney dominated the top 10 most covered Beatles songs, 8 out of 10. As we went through the top 50, Lennon crept up and got a little closer, but McCartney certainly dominated that top 10. And why? We determined that ballads are typically more heavily covered songs. If you look at, in the 1960s anyway, the most played songs on radio in the decade of the 60s, or even I think up until now, but there are 360 songs. Yesterday, Never My Love, and You've Lost That Lovin' Feelin'. All ballads, all timeless in terms of love, I guess you'd say. So those are the most played songs on radio, and you can see why. Beautiful songs, beautiful melodies, beautifully sung. So that was part 1. So now for this second part, what I did was look at each Beatle individual in their solo years. So let's start with John. And as you may recall, Yesterday clocked in at about 1,600 covers, which is a huge amount of covers. That's the Guinness Book of World Records citation from 2009. So that's, I don't know how accurate all this is because obviously there's probably new covers being done all the time that aren't accounted for. So these numbers are typically going to grow, but over a long period of time, after over 50, 60 years, you start to see a pattern. So let's look at John Lennon here. So his first song on the list, most covers, pretty obvious, Imagine. A ballad of a different kind, I guess you'd say, 755. Next is Happy Christmas War is Over at 374. Jealous Guy at 149. These are all quiet, mellow songs, as is the next two. Love and Woman, both at 89 covers each. So that's the top 5. Let me continue here. Working Class Hero is next at 85. Instant Karma 68. Give Peace a Chance 63. Fame with David Bowie 57. I threw that in there, and I'll show you why, because there's some George Harrison and Paul McCartney songs that have similar pairings. Mother with 54, Just Like Starting Over 53. Watching the Wheels 44, Cold Turkey 43, Beautiful Boy 41, Give Me Some Truth 40. So that is the top 15 of John Lennon. Now let's move over to Paul McCartney. His top song, most covered song, is Wonderful Christmas Time. And the number is 181, which is a far cry from his highest covered song with the Beatles, which is Yesterday. Way behind, too, Imagine by John Lennon. So Wonderful Christmas Time checks in at number 181. Live and Let Die is next at 161. And My Love at 141. My Love, there's one of those typical, very good, strong McCartney ballads again. Probably his best of the decade of the 70s. Number 4, Mull of Kintyre at 99, and Maybe I'm Amazed at 94. I would have thought Maybe I'm Amazed and My Love would have been the top, but no. So let me round out the next 10. We have Ebony and Ivory at 59, Junk at 55, Band on the Run, 48. Strange that Junk, an obscure album track, is more covered than Band on the Run, a number 1 song, but that's how it is. Next one, The Girl Is Mine with Michael Jackson at 44. Silly Love Songs, 42. Here's one I didn't know, but it's on the list. It's with Rihanna and Kanye West, 4 or 5 Seconds. That's at number 40. Let 'Em In at 40. Listen to What the Man Said, 40. Say, 39. That's also Michael Jackson. Pairing up with him on that one, and Jet at 35. So what we see here, so the John Lennon, if you add up those top 15, and then they trail off very quickly. This is not like the Beatles, where even some of the most obscure songs have, 150 covers. John Lennon was at 2004. That's his total for his top 15 most covered songs. McCartney is nearly half that at 1,118. So what we see here in the 70s is a reverse of what we saw in the 60s. We see Lennon gaining ground and having more songs covered. And we'll talk about that in a moment. Let's go to George Harrison. So Harrison, his top 15, starts with My Sweet Lord at 175, and then it drops off very quickly. Isn't It a Pity? Next at 51. Give Me Love, Give Me Peace on Earth at 42. What Is Life? 34. And Beware of Darkness? 32. Those are his top 5. Number 6, Handle with Care with the Traveling Wilburys. The next one I threw in here, Badge with Eric Clapton. I guess that's not a cover song. Well, 31 cover songs were done of Badge, and he co-wrote that song, so I threw it on here. We're kind of low on Harrison songs. We're going to get something in here. All Things Must Pass at 22 covers. Photograph I threw in here, co-written with Ringo Starr. That's at 20. End of the Line, another Wilbury song, 20. Bangladesh, 17. Wah Wah, 17. I'd Have You Anytime, 12. Behind That Locked Door, 11. And All Those Years Ago, 10. Now, what's interesting about Harrison's list, I guess let's first start by saying My Sweet Lord, when I looked it up, it didn't even come under George Harrison's name. Why? Because it's a co-write. It's considered a co-write by compilers of lists like this because of the litigation of the copyright infringement of the song He's So Fine. Okay, so that song, if you take that song off, it's at 175. His next one is at 51. So very few covers of George by comparison. My Sweet Lord, obviously, that was, I think, the biggest hit of any solo Beatles song ever, of any of them. So that was a huge hit. Now, another interesting thing about these, these top 15, 8 of the songs are from his first album. That album, very big success, critically acclaimed. But after that, his quality and the critical acclaim drops off significantly, as does the commerciality of his albums as well. Okay, let's go to Ringo. This won't take long. We have It Don't Come Easy at 35, Photograph at 20, a co-write with George Harrison, Back Off Boogaloo at 19, Oh My My, somehow got 10 covers on it. Now, I guess I could have put It Don't Come Easy in the George list. Most people understand that to be a co-write, although George Harrison isn't credited on the label on that. Ringo actually had the song before Harrison came aboard on that song. He had the melody, but Harrison added quite a lot of lyrics and helped, obviously played on it and produced it. So that one you can put on either list if you like. So the total of George Harrison songs is 527. That's his top 15. So we got 2004 for Lennon, 1,118 for McCartney, 527 for George, and Ringo's top 4, 84 covers. And since he didn't barely write anything, he's not going to have many cover songs because what he did were covers. Okay, so let me just go over a couple things here, a couple other things that jumped out at me. One of the things was we have the Christmas songs doing very well. McCartney's highest covered song is Wonderful Christmas Time at 181. Lennon's Happy Christmas War Is Over is at 374, so more than double McCartney's. And George Harrison's Ding Dong somehow got 4 covers. One of the worst Christmas, one of the most deplorable Christmas songs I think I've ever heard in my life. Ding Dong. Okay. A couple other just notes here of songs that I just wanted to call it just because they were interesting to me. John Lennon, Woman is the Niger of the World. Can we say the Niger River on this channel? On YouTube, I think we can. 6 covers with that one, so more than you'd think maybe. My Mummy's Dead, 3 covers. How Do You Sleep, 13 covers. The mirror image of that song, a copy of his own song, Steel and Glass, 4 covers. And finally, Oh Yoko, 11 covers. We've got some real Yoko lovers out there. They're going to croon that song to Miss Ono. Okay, Paul McCartney. Let's see what he did on his political song, Give Ireland Back to the Irish. That comes in at 5 covers. Long-Haired Lady off Ram, the song everybody thinks that I should love for some reason, that got 1 cover. Freedom, 3 covers. The same amount of covers for Temporary Secretary at 3 covers, and Fa You with 0 covers. Going over to George here. Blow Away, a song I thought you might hear more covers, 6. Apple Scruffs, 6. When We Was Fab, 3. Deep Blue, 2, a personal favorite of mine. And Here Comes the Moon, 2. So those are just some nuggets I thought I'd throw at you there. And so now, what does this mean? We obviously have, I don't think it was a surprise to people on the first video when McCartney had all those covers, and the most covered Beatles songs were of mainly his songs. And keep in mind, the Lennon-McCartney collaboration is just that. There's always a collaboration on almost every part of the scale imaginable. But we can oftentimes attribute the main bulk of the song to one or the other, obviously. Do I have to say that? I do, based on some of the comments I got in the last video. Thank you very much. McCartney's appeal, I think, took a turn in the 70s. I think part of it had to do with the Beatles breakup, because he got the blame for it. He very clumsily announced the breakup with that kind of news release, where he didn't even say the Beatles broke up. But it was so clumsily written that the entire world took that from the release. And I think that was held against him by people in the counterculture. So what happened, I think, was the Beatles in general, in their solo years, were left to indulge in whatever they wanted to, the thing they felt strongly about. Lennon politics, Harrison spirituality, Starr in like vaudeville type of standards, I guess you'd say. And then McCartney, I guess you'd say, homespun music. And McCartney, who in the 60s, he was both, he could do the homespun music, you know, the songs like When I'm 64 or Obla Di Obla Da, and still be considered the coolest guy on the planet. That changed when the Beatles broke up. Ranks split, and the counterculture went to Lennon and kind of abandoned McCartney. So McCartney, I think, took a bad rap. And did that have an effect on the covers? I don't know, maybe. I don't know. You know, why would you sing a song like Another Day when you can sing Yesterday? You know, so they're still going back to the Beatle time. I mean, the Beatles are still the go-to place if you want to get Lennon or McCartney songs. No question about it. Basically, I think most of McCartney's best ballads were behind him by the time, you know, very early 70s. He had a couple, maybe I'm Amazed, I think is one of his greatest songs he ever wrote. Although I don't know, I guess that's a ballad, a kind of a rock ballad, I guess you'd call it. Now, Lennon also indulged in some of his worst tendencies in the 70s, namely politics, and he overexposed himself under the guise of creating some kind of avant-garde art. By the time 72 came around with that deplorable Sometime in New York City album, it was pretty much done. He was done promoting himself or promoting peace, as he says. He and Yoko Ono. Really, they were promoting themselves. They were not promoting peace. That's in my opinion. And you can see that in how they behaved through that whole period. And I think that what happened was this peacenik thing stuck is because of the assassination. He got killed very early in life. So we didn't have a long period of bad songs from 80 to say 95 to reflect on, in which case he might have gone different directions politically. You know, we know he actually was interested in Ronald Reagan's politics for a period. He became a Christian for a short period of time. So this guy, who knows what he would have done. But because he got killed, he's only viewed as kind of this peace guy, anti-war. So that's something that is carried on. And I would bet that the Imagine covers that are so plentiful on this list mostly came after he died. That's a guess. I could look that up and talk about tedium. I'll let somebody else do that video. But I think that, and by the way, in the 70s, when Lennon was engaging with the counterculture, and some very sketchy shysters were trying to use Lennon, Abbie Hoffman types, to push their own causes. What was going on in the 70s is the counterculture was being recorded by people from the counterculture. History was being recorded by the top rock critics like Rolling Stone and people like that in television, in films. So McCartney was kind of on the outside of that a little bit. And I think that affected how his songs were perceived and perhaps why he has less covers in the period after the Beatles. Now, Harrison's covers are, barely mentionable. As I said, Ronnie Mac, he gets credit for, part of My Sweet Lord. It's a shame that Harrison couldn't have changed it up a little bit, but that was a black mark on his record. And Harrison, after that first album, which is rather mellow, I would say, by and large, the guy never really did a hard rocking song for the rest of his life, which is, I think, a reason why he lost audience. Critically, commercially, that's just how it went. I don't think he was engaging enough. And partly due to his personality, an introvert. And then we got Ringo. He hardly wrote anything, so there's very little to discuss except for the 2 songs co-written with Harrison. Great songs, but Ringo, not a songwriter, so he really doesn't figure into this conversation much. So anyway, I thought that was worth looking at some of those songs, and it's amazing how plentiful how plentiful the covers are of Beatles songs in those 8 years, as opposed to all these other years that followed the Beatles and with all these solo careers when they just, they had their time. It was the 60s, and then things kind of went different directions from there, and they were never as big as the Beatles, obviously. I know I'm stating the obvious, but this data bears that out, and since I'm a data-heavy channel, thought I'd bring it up to you. Thanks for watching.